there, this is John from Heroes and Legends. Welcome to another edition of This Week in Magic the Gathering. As always, we're going to take a look at the results from the big tournaments, GP Pittsburgh, GP Colby, and of course the Star City Games Open in Kansas City. And also, we're going to wrap up the 1,000 subscribers celebration by doing the Q&A. So a few days back, we did a thank you video, and asked for any questions. Got a couple questions, so I'll answer them here. But it's a fun segment, so in the future, if you have any other questions, put them in the comments below in This Week in Magic the Gathering. And whenever I get enough questions, I might be able to do another segment. So if you have questions, throw them down there. They can be about Magic, about anything you want, and I'll try to answer them. So having said that, let's jump into the results. All right, let's start things off with GP Pittsburgh, and congratulations to Alex Bianchi, who took this tournament down 2,679 players. This was huge. They were originally capped at 2,500. They went a little over the cap, still turned people away. Now, Pittsburgh is a good area for a big tournament because it is in the middle of a lot of other cities. It's easy to travel to, so I'm sure that is part of the reason. But wow, one of the biggest modern tournaments I've seen, I think. So pretty awesome. So what deck was Alex playing? He was playing Jeskai Twin. I have a link in the description if you'd like to take a closer look at the deck list, but here it is, your basic Jeskai Twin deck list. You got 3 Splinter Twins, 4 Deceiver Exarchs, a Pestermite, and a control package, basically. He is running 1 Kiki Jiki. Some of the decks are no longer running that, but he does have a 1 of. So what were the other decks to round out the top 8? We saw Affinity, Green-White Aggro, Grixis Control, Blue-Red Twin, Titan Scapeshift, and Blue-Red Twin. So when you look at the top 8, you say, oh, okay, 3 Twin decks and 2 Affinity decks, but that doesn't really reflect the diversity. There was actually a lot of diversity in the field, maybe more so than I've seen in the last year or so in Modern, so that's exciting. Now, yeah, some of the big hitters made their way to the top as always, but a couple honorable mentions. Craig Wesco's Green-White Aggro deck was really cool to watch, and it ran on like Voices of Resurgences. Scavenging Ooze did a ton of work, and it had Thalias in there. And again, when you get a chance, take a closer look at this deck list. I think it's really awesome. And the other one I just wanted to point out quickly was Corey Burkhart was running Grixis Control. This has become a very popular Modern deck recently, and it's just interesting because it runs a lot of new cards. It's got 4 Jaces in there, probably not helping Jace's price. It's got a Pia and Kira Nalar, a couple Taskers, 4 Kolaghan's commands. So hey, just want to point that out. I think those are pretty cool. Let's move on to Grand Prix Colby. So congratulations to Takuma Morofuji, who took down this tournament 2,571 players. So another giant tournament. Now this one, of course, was a standard. So what was it that he was playing? It was Atarka Red. So Atarka Red has been doing well. It's maybe hasn't been as plentiful lately, but of course it appears like there is a different metagame in Asia than we're seeing currently in the States. Quickly, I'll let you take a look at his deck list. Again, there's a link in the description if you'd like a better look or take a little more time to mull over that. But what else was in the top 8? Mardu, Esper Dragons, Esper Tokens, Eldrazi Ramp, Abzan, White Black Tokens, and Esper Dragons. Noticeably absent was the 4-color Rally deck, which seems to really be taking over the metagame in the United States, but not in the top 8 here, so that's interesting. So let's look at Star City Games Open Kansas City, and what you'll find is the 4-color Rally deck did make a bigger impact here. Now this was the highest finishing 4-color Rally deck by Sam Birkenbile, finished in 3rd place. But this is the deck that just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and gaining momentum. Now, having said that, there's still a lot of diversity in Standard, a lot more than there was previously, I think. But this deck's starting to kind of sift through the top. And if you look at the rest of the top 8, I will say congratulations to Matt Carlson, who won this with Abzan Red. We'll take a look at his deck list in a second. But we have Jeskai Black, 4-color Rally, Esper Dragons, 4-color Rally, Green Red Eldrazi, Teamer Black, and 4-color Rally. So again, a lot of diversity in the field, but 4-color Rally starting to really filter to the top again. And before we move on, just quickly, I'll let you look at Matt Carlson's deck list with the Abzan Red deck, and pretty cool deck actually. It feels a lot like just kind of your run-of-the-mill Abzan deck with some red sprinkled in there to get cards like Kolaghan, Storm Fury, and things like Crackling Doom. Crackling Doom does a ton of work on this deck. You get a Cold Guns command in there for your trouble. So a little bit of splash of red, but it can do a lot of things. And I like the Dragon Master Outcast in the sideboard as well. So let's move on to our Q&A. All right, so like I said at the top of the show, only got a couple questions, but I would like to make this a regular segment, so feel free to put more questions in the comments below. And as far as the 1,000 subscribers celebration goes, is kind of the wrap up of it, so thank you all for all your support. And we did do the thank you video. We also opened a 4th edition starter deck to celebrate, and we opened a box of conspiracy boosters. So if you haven't seen those, check out the channel and catch those. The conspiracy box was pretty nuts, actually. So let's move on to the questions. First question was from the Mysterious Tactician, who asked, who was your first commander when you started playing EDH? So the answer maybe isn't super exciting, but it is Azur the Enchanter. So I know this was probably a lot of people's first commander, and it's actually probably a lot of people's commander. But the reason I picked Azur, I didn't know he was as popular as he was when I chose him. I just wanted to find an Esper commander because I had a lot of Esper cards I wanted to play in my commander deck. So I searched for a cool Esper commander. There weren't a whole lot to choose from, and I'm looking through my cards, and I stumbled upon Azur. Cold Snap, one of my favorite sets, so I had a lot of cards from it, and I had like 4 Azurs in a binder somewhere, and I was like, wow, this seems to work, and I could go with this enchantment theme, you throw the retethers in, that type of stuff, and that's what I did. So I actually had a lot of fun with the deck. Like I said, I didn't realize at the time how common he is as a commander. In fact, another friend of mine built his first commander deck and used the same card. We didn't talk to each other or anything. He just threw a Azur deck together, and I was like, wow, that's same one I used. But maybe not super exciting, but that's the answer. Next, Brian Clem asked, what are your favorite Magic cards? There's a lot of directions I could have gone with this, but you can see things like power level or just flavor, what have you, but I went with cards that meant the most to me just from a nostalgia, I guess, point of view, and just looking back at my time playing Magic, especially when I first started playing. So I actually chose one from each color, as well as a colorless, an artifact, a land, and a multicolor card. So let's just go through them quick. We have in white, Hand of Justice from Fallen Empire. This is probably my favorite Magic card of all time, which is a really weird choice. Most people have never even heard of this card, but so much of this card was just fun for me back in the old days. And back when I was playing Magic, like after Revise came out and stuff, white was kind of seen as a weak color. I mean, it had like Wrath of God and Balance and Armageddon and Sarah Angel, but it was more of control elements that would go in a blue deck, a blue-white build, more than it was like a strong color on its own. So I guess I maybe like that challenge, and I wanted to build a cool white deck. And when Fallen Empire came out and I saw this card, I was like, wow, this is like a Royal Assassin, but better, because you don't even have to tap the creature. It can just destroy something as long as you have like some white weenies on the board, and it's a 2/6, so it can block and kind of defend you. So I built decks around this, and I was very successful back in the day. Obviously the game was much different. I played a lot of multiplayer back in those days. Probably wouldn't have been as good if I was playing single player Magic a lot. But I loved everything about this card. I loved the quote on the card. The flavor was so cool. I love the picture with the dude sitting in the chair with his mustache. And I think that's supposed to be the guy who's giving the quote, Oliver Farrell. But I've seen other pictures of him. He never has had that giant mustache. So I don't know what's going on. And he also looks green. I don't know if that's intentional. But it was just so cool. And I just love this card. I still do to this day. I actually have a Magic Online Legacy casual deck that I play with this and Lingering Souls. Lingering Souls is probably my second favorite white card of all time. In blue, it's Counterbalance. Now, this is a little more well-known, and basically I've had a lot of fun playing Counterbalance top over the years in Legacy and different versions of that deck. But on top of that, it comes from another one of my favorite sets, Cold Snap, and I just love the art on this. I just think the art is amazing. And I don't think I've ever seen a foil Counterbalance, believe it or not. Maybe I have playing Legacy, but I would love to see this card in foil. But I just think the art is so cool with the red and blue contrast. In black is Cabal Ghoul from Arabian Nights, and this is just another card from my early days of Magic that I just loved. You throw this out in a multiplayer game, and it was a 1/1, and no one paid any attention to it, and it just grew and grew and grew. And nowadays we have a lot of creatures that have this type of effect, but at the time this was the only one that ever did this, and it was just so cool that it could get bigger and bigger, and it comboed with so many great things in black. Like you could use a oubliette, which was like a Journey to Nowhere, and oubliette your own creature and then hit Navinral's Disc, and it just came back and got all the counters for everything that died. You could work this with like Icy Manipulators or Royal Assassins or Netling Imps and Sengir Vampires to get more value when creatures died. There was just so much you could do with it. It was just so much fun. Or you could like pop the disc, then play it, and it still got the counters for the creatures that died. It comboed well with Hellfire, which was a black board wipe from Legends. Just a lot of good memories playing with this card. In red, this is a new card, which is kind of surprising probably to a lot of people. Chandra's Ignition. Maybe I discovered red late in my Magic career, but I've been playing a lot of red lately, especially in Limited, and this card's really fun in Limited. I've had a blast with it, and it combos with so many things, just big creatures with Death Touch, and it's awesome when you play this with Nantuko Husk. I've actually played some Limited games where I've had a Husk in play. I was able to sacrifice 3 or 4 creatures. If you sacrifice 4 creatures, your Husk becomes a 10/10. You play this, you do 10 points of direct damage and pretty much wipe the board, and then you just get to attack in for 10. Yeah, it's crazy. I love this card. And on top of that, I think the art's really cool, and I just love the flavor of Chandra's Spark Igniting and all that you see in the picture there. Now for multiplayer, another unusual one. This is Ghosted Dirk from Legends. And back when I used to play Magic years and years ago, when the Dark was out and stuff, a lot of tribal players played tribal goblins. And then when the Fallen Empires came out, many of them shifted to tribal merfolk. And tribal merfolk with Island Walk was no joke. That deck was strong, and everybody was playing it, at least in my local game store. So I went out and tried to find a card that can combat that, and I discovered Ghosted Dirk, and I threw one of him in my deck, and it blanked half the decks I played against. So it was hugely powerful for me, and it was just really kind of a cool card. Most people didn't even know it existed at the time even, and yeah, it's not much to look at now, but I just have a lot of fond memories of it. For colorless, I went with Emrakul, and I got to play with this card in Modern, playing Tron, and basically it's what you want to be casting with Tron. I mean, Karn's cool too, that's an honorable mention, but I think this one was my favorite. It just has just so much impact. Artifacts, Painter's Servant. So a couple of reasons this is my favorite artifact. One reason is because I played it in Legacy and had a lot of success playing Painter's Grindstone combo, and actually really liked that deck for a long time. And the second one is I just have a funny story about it with a friend of mine. I was playing a lot of Legacy with a good friend of mine, and he was trying to beat my Painter's Grindstone combo deck and really having trouble, trying a lot of different strategies, and the deck was just crazy good, and it was just doing really well against him when we were playing like one weekend. So a few days later we decided instead of playing Legacy, we're going to play some Sealed. Shadowmoor was out at the time, so we went out, bought some packs, and I opened my packs and I get a Painter's Servant. So I build my deck. There's absolutely no reason to put the Painter's Servant in the deck. I just did it as a joke because I was beating him with it all week in Legacy. So I threw it in, and I thought it would be funny when I throw it down on the battlefield. So we're playing a game. It's a real tight game. We both have a lot of creatures out, and I draw Painter's Servant. I throw it down on the board, and just for laughs that I'm playing this card. And then I have to pick my color. So I just try to think of a color that wouldn't really have much of an effect on anything that I was going to be trying to do. So I just picked white. It just seemed like the safest answer. And his face just dropped, and he looked at me. He's like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "No, what?" And he shows me his hand, and he had in his card the board sweep that destroys all non-white creatures, and he was about to, on his next turn, white my creatures, attack in, and beat me with his white creatures. I ended up coming back, winning the game because of the silly card, and which really shouldn't even have been in my deck. And he just couldn't believe that he got beat down again by Painter's Servant, this time in Limited. So I just love this card, and that story just cracks me up. And the last card I chose was Maze of Ith. This is from the Dark. The Dark is probably my favorite Magic set of all time. I just love seeing the dark side of all the colors, especially at that time. I think everyone just thought, well, black's the evil color. But really what this set showed was all the colors have a good side and a dark side, and you got to see that dark side of all of them, even like white, where you saw things like Inquisitions and Martyrs and Witch Hunters and that sort of stuff. But anyway, Maze of Ith just was a really awesome card. When it came out, you're like, wow, I can blank like their strongest creature coming in to attack me. That's awesome. So I remember a friend of mine and I played in a team tournament. This is before we had two-headed giants, so teams used to be just play every other person and you just try to beat the other two people basically. And we played Juggernauts and Mazes of Ith, and we played in a game where our opponents played Juggernauts and Mazes of Ith, and it was the most grindy, slow, just disgusting game of Magic you could ever imagine. And I think about a week later they restricted Maze of Ith to one copy per deck, because back then everything was just basically vintage. So they had a restricted list and a ban list. But yeah, it quickly got restricted. I'm sure we weren't the only ones experiencing the painfully slow games. But having said that, it's a really fun card. I just have some funny memories of it too from back in the day. So hey, having said that, those are the questions that, hey, it was my pleasure to answer. So thank you for asking. Like I said, feel free to put more questions in the comments below in future segments of This Week in Magic the Gathering. When it's slow news weeks, I might be able to do some more of them. So hey, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.